All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you've been thoroughly enjoying Trail Forum so far. I think everything for the most part has been running smoothly, and I know we've had some really great sessions this morning. So, like I mentioned in the onset in my introductory presentation, one of the things we really like to focus on for Trail Forum is to have a keynote speaker who really, I'm always leaning towards a keynote who can really inspire us and to, make us understand how important our work is, and to just reassure us that, the work on trails is so important, and how it really works to inspire others too, and to get more people out to recognize and discover trails. And I'm really honored today to introduce Jesi Stracham, who's going to be our keynote. Jesi is a resident of Lincoln County. She lives in Iron Station. And we've had the pleasure of meeting her and having some great conversations over the past month or so. We actually went out and did some filming, which you will see here as part of her keynote. But Jesi runs the Wheel With Me Foundation. And a lot of what she does is she inspires others to overcome their challenges. In 2015, Jesi had a motorcycle accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down, and she uses her wheelchair to get around. And she's a lover of trails. I mean, she really looks to find inspiration and help her overcome her challenges by getting out on the trails. And I know she goes and uses many of the trails right around Lincolnton, and we had her out on the Forney Creek Trail. So the perspective that Jesi is going to provide today for everybody, I think, is going to be very interesting. It's going to be very unique. Certainly, this is the first time that we've had a speaker talk from her perspective. And I think it's going to be very inspirational to all of you. And I think we can learn a lot from Jesi too, as a wheelchair user who goes out on our trails. She's kind of, sort of put together a collection and inventory of the things that she sees on the trails that maybe we could do some tweaking just to make them more accommodating to everybody. So without further ado, and Jesi, you can talk a little bit more about yourself. I don't want to take up too much time here, but it's my honor to introduce Jesi Stracham to talk to you about her experience with trails and what she draws inspiration from. Jesi, take it away.
Thank you, Brett. So I'm Jesi Stracham, and I've been a paraplegic. It will be 6 years in January, and it feels like just yesterday. Life changes so quickly, and I think COVID-19's really taught us how quick life can just be flipped upside down. And I'm honestly very grateful that I had my injury because it allowed me to adapt to COVID pretty quick. So I was a passenger on a motorcycle, and a woman was looking at her GPS and made a U-turn in front of us. So the driver of the bike went through her back window, breaking his leg. I went over her SUV, breaking my back in 2 places. My ribs punctured my lungs, nicking my spinal cord, and I coded twice, needing resuscitation. So that's 2 opportunities that I could not be sitting here today. And I'm just very grateful to get to live another day. I think that one of the most powerful things in my story is I was actually saved the day before my injury. I was atheist who didn't believe in anything, and then went to a friend's funeral, felt calmness. The next day, I'm in this life-changing accident. So when I coded, I had saw my grandmother, and she told me it wasn't my time, and I couldn't come with her, and she couldn't stay with me. And I hold on to those words, and that's really what has carried me. I'm very fortunate that I've got to live a very colorful life. I've always loved the outdoors. I grew up racing off-road on a four-wheeler. I raced a series called GNCC, and it's woods racing. So nature's been something that's always been close to my heart. It was always my escape from my reality. And I'm very fortunate that when I got paralyzed, I was able to continue racing in a modified machine. And so getting back out there and being able to do the things that were normalized for me really helped me when adapting to this injury. I think the hardest thing laying in that hospital bed, I wrote down all of the things I was mad about that I had lost in the accident. And at the top of that list was not being able to hike up a mountain anymore, not being able to dive into the South Mountain waterfall, which you're not supposed to do, and I did anyways. It's I constantly looked at what I had lost. And I wasn't in that moment when we experience loss, we immediately look at what has been taken away. It's very easy to look at what's been taken away. I decided to flip my narrative and I'm like, what's been given to me? What are the opportunities that I have? And that's what has brought the acceptance of my spinal cord injury. That's what's brought the acceptance of becoming a wheelchair user. And I'm not going to lie, it's not been an easy road. There's a lot of obstacles. The one thing I found out is people's idea of accessibility typically is not accessible. People's idea of things that are helpful for people with disabilities or for accessibility as a whole typically are not helpful. And you really learn and you learn how to adapt and overcome certain obstacles within life, within everyday life. And nature really did that for me. So you're going to see in this video today different obstacles on the trail that we run into and ways that it could be made more accessible without really hurting the trail that much. So Jennifer, if you want to show the video. As a wheelchair user, keeping your mental health is something that's pretty important. I use nature to clear my head and remind myself that my disability doesn't rule me. My name's Jesi Stracham. I'm a wheelchair user that's just helping others see that opportunity within their obstacles. When choosing a trail, accessibility is key because most of the time I'm by myself. Thankfully, Carolina Thread Trail offers so many accessible trails and a website that tells you the accessibility, the surfaces, and where to go. Today, we're going to check out 2 trails. Today, we're at the 40 Creek Trail. When pulling up, the first thing you noticed is there isn't a curb cut for me to get my wheelchair on, so I definitely couldn't come here alone because I would need a little bit of assistance. When I first became a wheelchair user, I wouldn't dare come out here on my own. With practice and consistency on these types of surfaces, it's made navigating it a lot easier. You have to remember, we're all individuals and what works for one may not work for another, but skilled wheelchair users have no hard times going over these types of surfaces. I'm going to hold a wheelie while going down this hill. Our front wheels, the smaller caster, often gets caught in different surfaces, so holding the wheelie just gives us a little bit more control while going down. I definitely would not be able to do this trail alone due to the incline of the hill and being able to get back up it. I can go down, but getting back up might be an issue. Even though this incline isn't as big as the one in the entry, I still would need some assistance getting back out of here. So this trail definitely would not be able to be done alone unless these hills were paved. Natural surfaces are often pretty accessible, but there's sometimes things such as roots and stumps that will pose a little bit of a challenge. That's where my wheel skills come in. Knowing how to wheelie makes those obstacles a lot easier to overcome. If I don't hold a wheelie over obstacles such as these roots, I'll wheel, drop the wheelie, and then it stops me and I can't continue to wheel forward. So that wheelie makes it where you're able to overcome your obstacles. Everyone's an individual, so they have their personal preference. Mine is definitely a natural surface. A hard-packed natural surface such as this one is really nice. Even when it rains, we got a ton of rain last week and this is still hard pack. I hate pea gravel. The way that it sucks you in when you're trying to wheel over it definitely poses for a big challenge when you're trying to get out and enjoy nature. I love coming outside because it reminds you how powerful nature is and how big our world truly is. I think that we often get so caught up in our world that we forget about the outside world. I mean,
Nature is the most powerful thing. It's relaxing and it's humbling. Wheel skills definitely make navigating this trail a lot easier. As a wheelchair user, getting your confidence up to go out into nature to reset your mind is something that's key. I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunities to build my wheel skills so I'm able to do this independently. When approaching this bridge, the first thing I noticed was the ledge. There seems to be a little bit of washout from the dirt. Maybe if there was a wood boardwalk coming up to create a ramp, it would make it a little bit accessible for all. Some trails have cool features such as the suspension bridge. The only thing that sucks is I can't enjoy it. It's not accessible, there's a set of stairs to it. So by making the cool features within the trail accessible, you're opening up opportunities for a demographic of people that typically wouldn't have that opportunity. We're at the Marcia H. Cloninger Trail, and this rail trail offers a paved path on what once used to be a railroad. The difference between this rail trail and the Forney Creek Trail we were just on is the paved path and the accessibility features of it. But by making small adjustments to trails like Forney Creek, you can make them more accessible not only for the disabled community, but moms with strollers and our elderly community. Rail trails often offer the secludity of nature in the middle of an urban setting. This rail trail is in the middle of downtown Lincolnton, so you get to experience the cool shops and then a little piece of nature. The really cool thing about Carolina Thread Trail is that a lot of them have high traffic, so your safety is not something you have to worry about on the trail. You're rarely out here alone, and you get to meet other awesome trail goers. There's plenty of people out here enjoying nature just like you. When experiencing nature via a trail, you want to be sure to be aware of your surroundings, whether that's on a rail trail with road crossings or on a natural surface trail with nature. Just be sure to pay attention to where you're going and what's around you. I think a big misconception is that wheelchair users don't get out and live life because up until recently, we weren't visible doing it. Thanks to social media, you're seeing more of us get out and live life, so just consider us when building a new trail or a cool feature to a trail. Nature serves as my outlet to escape from my disability. Even though I'm pushing on a trail, when I'm out here, I forget that I'm disabled and it gives me freedom from it.
So just as a lot of you guys, nature serves as my emotional outlet. If I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, if life is just getting to me, I go to the outdoors. I seek the outdoors. So it was no surprise that when I first got out of the hospital, the first place I go was Kings Mountain Gateway Trail, which honestly, it taught me my independence. I remember my first time out there, I took the paved path all the way to the bottom of the hill. And I remember feeling so small looking up at that hill, thinking, there's no way I'll ever be able to push up at the top of this. So I turned around and went back. And it was a long push because it was 2 weeks out of the hospital when I got my license and I had my car modified. And so 2 weeks out of the hospital, 2 weeks into my independent journey of being a wheelchair user, here I am all by myself with my husky on this trail trying to figure out how I'm going to navigate. And my best friend and I actually, Jessica and I, went out there weekly and just to get out and escape, because I don't feel like I'm a person with a disability when I'm in the outdoors. I don't see my disability when I'm out in the outdoors. I'm literally just Jesi enjoying trees and animals and taking my animal out and just really escaping from my reality. And so it's empowering to have places that I'm able to go that are accessible to me. And I feel that the Kings Mountain Gateway Trail really did serve. My first year of injury, every other week I was there. I didn't even know about the Lincolnton Rail Trail until probably a year ago. And so that was I would make that drive and I would go there and we would just learn. I was coming down the hill one time, and I'm glad Jessica was with me, and I hit a small rock, and it actually ejected me out of my chair. So I flew out of my chair, then my chair goes rolling. And that was my first time falling out of my chair in public. And I was comforted because I had been there numerous times before. I was outdoors, and it was my first experience falling, and I'm like, I overcame it. I didn't get upset, and it was just a very empowering moment for me. And I couldn't have asked for a better place for it to happen, because that rail trail truly did teach me wheel skills. There's this straightaway, for those of you that haven't been to that trail, there's a straightaway that's just pea gravel, and I would go through there holding a wheelie and wheeling myself through this pea gravel, and that taught me wheel skills to overcome obstacles in my everyday life. Now I have no problem going through grass, mud, more pea gravel, regular gravel, anything that my front wheels can get caught on. That trail taught me. So the more people that we empower to go out, to experience these trails, to attack the obstacles, to learn how to overcome their disability, and then use the outdoors to escape their disability, it's empowering to have access to this. And again, by providing accessibility, you're not just providing accessibility for the disabled community, but our elderly population. For moms with strollers, a mom with a stroller has almost the same size wheels that I have on my wheelchair. And pea gravel, that stroller is going to have the same issue. Mud, same issue. So by creating a more accessible trail system, you're also helping other demographics of people other than the disabled community. I'm really grateful that it allowed me to find my self-acceptance. Because again, I don't see my disability when I'm outside. I was able to accept what has happened to me. I'm able to accept who I am as a person, because I'm just a person again. I'm just Jesi. I'm not my wheelchair. I'm not my disability. Whereas if I go to a city, I'm constantly hit in the face with barriers, with accessibility barriers, from bathrooms not being accessible, from there not being curb cuts, doorways not being wide enough, not being able to get into friends' homes. So having these trails available, it just removes so many barriers and it just gives you confidence, and it gives you that self-acceptance of, I'm not different. I'm okay. I'm okay the way I am. I don't have to walk to live a full life. I don't have to walk to be happy. And I think that's one of the hardest things when adjusting to this injury, is realizing that you don't have to have these physical means to live a full life. And that's the hardest thing. When people meet me, a lot of the times, the first thing somebody wants to say to a wheelchair user is, I'm so sorry. And there's nothing to be sorry about. This injury is single-handedly the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me. It's given me such a perspective on life that when things don't go my way, I'm unbothered. I move on from it. I hardly get upset about small things. It teaches you what to value, how to value your loved ones in the moment, how to live in the moment. And it's empowering. It's empowering to be acceptance of not walking, of not having bowel bladder control, of being a person with a disability that's different from the normal, and owning that. I also spend a lot of time camping, which is another way that I get to connect. And again, that's empowering as well. It makes you the big somebody's life. And by creating this accessibility, especially moms, think about how many moms have postpartum issues after their babies, and they don't know how to return to normal life because now they have another human to take care of. So you're also giving them an exit from their reality, just like a safe space. By providing accessibility for all, you're providing a safe space for all. I feel like getting out into nature allows you to let go of judgment of everything that you think the world should be, of the way that you think the world should be. I had an opinion before I was injured of what I thought a wheelchair user's life looked like, what I thought wheelchair users did, what I thought people with disabilities did. And that opinion was completely inaccurate. as I grew and obviously when I became a wheelchair user, I'm like, well, I don't want to live in the way that I thought that wheelchair users lived. And so it really opens your eyes to letting go of judgment of how you think other people's lives are going. In reality, we're not living other people's lives. We're not in their immediate circle. We're not in their shell. So who are we to judge the way that they live? Who are we to judge the decisions that they make? Wheelchair users actually live fuller lives. I live a fuller life as a wheelchair user than I ever did when I was able-bodied. I am grateful every day for my injury. It has given me, again, the perspective, opportunities. I've had an endless list of opportunities simply because of my perspective shift, because of my wheelchair. And this wheelchair continues to provide for me. It continues to strengthen me. And my obstacle is a wheelchair, but at the end of the day, we all have obstacles, whether it be loss of a loved one, divorce, homelessness, loss of employment, debt. We have our obstacle that in that moment, it seems so big. It seems like something that you're never going to be able to overcome. Before I was injured, I lived paycheck to paycheck. Like I'm talking, I would charge my debit card on Monday as credit just so I had the money to make it to Wednesday to payday. I went to work, partied every weekend. I was very reckless with the way that I lived my life. And this injury completely, it saved me. It saved me from going down a path that I didn't have to go down. And it's because I look at it as my saving grace. I could be upset about what happened to me. I spent the first year of my injury walking again because I have everybody around me saying, when are you going to walk again? Are you recovering? Are you getting better? And when you constantly have people expecting something from you that's not obtainable, it's definitely, it's disheartening. It's hard to find that acceptance. And so finding that self-acceptance and in your obstacle and what has happened to you and knowing that you're not alone, getting support from others around you. Your obstacles can be what grow and develop you as a person. Your obstacles can serve as the catapult to get you to where you want to be in life. Your obstacles can actually give you your true passion and make you realize that the path that you were on was not where you were meant to be. And having an open mind and realizing that we are meant to continuously change, develop, and grow, and not getting stuck in our day-to-day life and what is going on right now in this moment and staying here and saying, this has to be my forever. If I had that mindset when I first got injured, I would probably be in my bed still. I would definitely want to be sitting here talking to y'all because we are meant to grow. We're meant to prosper. Our struggle cannot be avoided in life. Again, regardless of what your struggle is, our struggles all look different, but at the end of the day, in that moment, they probably all feel really dang similar. I know that I had struggles before I was paralyzed that definitely felt the way that getting paralyzed felt in that moment. Obviously, those struggles before were nothing like getting paralyzed. But in that moment, they seem so life-shattering, so life-ending. And if you allow them to be, they will. But you can also look for the positive in it. My injury gave me my faith, my perspective, a long list of opportunities, and it really made me hone in on what I'm grateful for. I have a roof over my head. I have a loving family. I have access to a wheelchair. The amount of people overseas that don't even have a wheelchair that are in my situation and are either dragging themselves around their city or stuck in bed, it's disheartening. It's very sad. It's sad to see. But finding that gratitude in the small things that you have will carry you. And then the next thing you know, that gratitude's going to grow. That I started with a list. Every single night, I would say 10 things that I was grateful for before bed. Especially when I was feeling my lowest about what had happened to me. I would sit in bed and I'm like, all right, I got a roof over my head. I have clean sheets. I have blankets. I have a wheelchair. I have my dog. I have my parents. And it was literally just the basic things that I had in life that carried me to where I am now. And it's like having that gratitude has built, it builds you up and it builds you into wanting more. You're like, okay, what else could I be grateful for? And it really puts life into perspective. It makes you realize, wow, I have abundance in my life. I have an abundance of love. I have an abundance of support. And it makes you realize how full your life truly is. We are constantly looking for that want of the next thing, constantly searching for the next thing, that we don't pause in the moment and be like, wow, my life is pretty full, because we constantly are wanting. It's that need to constantly get more. I definitely am very, very fortunate that when I was first injured, I focused my first year on trying to walk. Second year into my injury is when I really actually accepted what had happened to me, and I started thriving. I changed my physical diet and my mental diet. I had this misconception that because I'm a wheelchair user, I didn't need to physically take care of myself. And so I didn't work out. I put on 30 pounds. I ate like crap, and I literally slept until 1 or 2, and I hardly got out of bed. And I looked in the mirror one day and I became fed up with who I was. I became fed up with the person I had become. I let my struggle overcome me. I let my struggle win. I let my adversity win. I'm like, oh, why did this happen to me? And there was a moment where I even questioned my faith. I'm like, why did God do this to me? I just don't understand why me. And now I understand why not me. But it took that looking in the mirror, that come to Jesus moment where it was like, girl, you are not where you want to be. You are not who you want to be. What are you doing? Because by a year into your injury, all those people that care about the struggle and the injury, like, oh, when you first get paralyzed or you first have something bad happen to you, think about it. Think back in your life when something traumatic happened in your life. And if you haven't had a traumatic experience, that's incredible, awesome. But if something bad has happened, think about all the people that were there, loss of a loved one. My accident is a great example. Literally, people were in and out of my hospital room. People were constantly checking on me. And eventually that goes away. So when you don't have these people checking on you, who are you showing up for? You should be showing up for you the entire time, but we get caught up as human beings in trying to please everyone around us and being there for everyone around us and being that person that everyone around us wants us to be, that we forget who we are. We forget who we're trying to be. And so I decided to take my life back. Like, you know what? Screw what everyone else thinks of me. Screw what everyone else wants me to do. Everyone wants me to walk again. I don't care about walking again. It's not a realistic goal at this time. Why don't I just focus on living my life now? And it was empowering to take back that control of my life, to take back control for me. Stop living your life in others' judgment. It's empowering and freeing to own who you are as a person, and that self-accountability, doing it for you, is more rewarding than anything you'll ever experience when you're first making that change of, I want to be a better version of me. And it's been an incredible, rewarding journey, because as you find self-acceptance within you, you can give that to other people. You can empower other people. And that's where the real reward is. Helping people is my biggest priority, which is how Wheel With Me Foundation was born. So 3-4 months into me changing my entire lifestyle, I changed my physical diet. So I did a very clean eating, which is now a lifestyle. I eat clean these days. I added physical activity, which is still part of my lifestyle. And then I changed my mental diet, which I think is key. We don't think about what we're consuming from the outside. Think about how often you scroll Facebook and you see something and it just really messes with your mood. Or you have this one person that always is posting stuff that you don't care for. why are you looking at these things that are really harshing in on your positivity, your mood, what you want? Being conscious of what content we're consuming is huge, because that has a lot of, it has just as much effect on you as what you consume internally as far as food. So I became very self-aware of what content I was consuming. And then I started practicing mental practice as far as meditation and visualization, and really just becoming one with myself and knowing who I am. And it's hard. I'm not going to say that it's not hard. There's a lot of tears that will be cried. And there's a lot of just self-hate and love. It's a process, but as you do it, it will take you to a whole nother level. So I start this mental work, I start this physical work, and then Wheel With Me Foundation is born. Wheel With Me Foundation has grown and developed over the years. Our biggest goal is to serve as a platform for other wheelchair users to help wheelchair users serve independence. So we have a domestic violence support, addiction support, lobbying group, independent transfer or independent and like transition support, peer support. It's literally, there's a little section for everything, because it's so important that wheelchair users are given the confidence to be independent contributing members of community. My population alone, I have a spinal cord injury. That's my specific disability. The spinal cord injury population, 51% of us relies solely on government assistance for our independence. That's over half of a population that has no known cure, and that grows by 17,700 people every year. We're an accumulative population that relies solely on government assistance for our independence. And it's key that we're empowered to realize, hey, just because I'm a wheelchair user doesn't mean that I can't live whatever life I visioned for myself. If you could still be this wheelchair literally offers more opportunity than walking ever did for me. I was a part of the Paralympic national developmental team for wheelchair curling, which is the sport on ice where there's sweepers. We don't have sweepers in wheelchairs because that would just get a little wild and dangerous. But I got to be on the national developmental team for 3 years. I traveled the country curling. I was an athlete on a national team. I have a jacket that says USA. Like, how cool is that? It's something I never would have even aspired to do. I got to start a nonprofit. I volunteer at the hospital. I think that's one of the most rewarding things I get to do as a wheelchair user. I have got to meet people all over the country. I've traveled the country. I've done 10 Tough Mudders. I've done 10 Tough Mudders, which Tough Mudder is an obstacle course race where you go through, you complete obstacles, you get super muddy. It is a really good time. I've done Worlds twice, which is their 24-hour event. So it's doing an obstacle for 24 hours. As recently as this year, I was signed to a casting agency, and I've had 2 acting gigs, which should come out in the early new year, independent film and a series. So, I mean, this is, again, my injury has brought endless opportunity because I choose to see the opportunity within my obstacle. Every single obstacle that we have in life presents an opportunity, regardless of what it is. For loss of a loved one, I mean, in that moment, it's really hard, but there's an opportunity that can come from it. During COVID, I had lost a cousin to suicide, and her suicide just awakened. It first put me in this sadness, and then it has awakened something else in me, because now that person's not here, and I'm here. There's so much more I can do. When we get sad about the things we don't have control over, we're giving away our power. We're giving it to whatever is happening that we don't have control over. So if someone has an opinion, if someone says something about me, or if something outside of my control happens, I don't give it my attention. It's not my monkeys, not my circus. There's no reason for us to give our control to other people. It's time that you take your life and you live your life for you. It's time that we take our control back. We let go of judgment of who we think we should be. Who would you be if you let go of every judgment of who you thought you should be? I'm going to say that one more time. Who would you be if you let go of every judgment of who you thought you should be? Who would you be if you let go of the fear? Fear often stops us before we even have the opportunity to start. And letting go of fear and realizing that what's the worst that can happen? Okay, I might fail. Well, what's going to happen in that failure? Oh, I might learn what not to do again to get to where I want to be. Embrace your obstacles and use them to live life to the fullest. Our obstacles are what catapult us to where we want to be. Our obstacles are the opportunity. Thank you.
Jesi, wow, thank you so much for sharing this with us. This has been so valuable to our whole audience and so great to hear. We have tons of great questions that have come in, so I will try to get through all of these. We have one question from Alex who says, if there's one thing that you could tell trail planners or have trail planners know, what would it be?
That's a really good one. Honestly, just reducing the amount of like the curbs, the bridge, for example, the amount of ledges that we would have to get up. And if you're going to incorporate a cool feature like that suspension bridge, please make a ramp so I can get on that thing. That would be so cool. The pictures I could have on there, not have to climb up steps, like giving me that opportunity. And not only me, I'm talking as a community. Moms with the stroller, who's to say that a mom wouldn't want to go up on that suspension bridge and just like, it's just cool because it's something different. Give us that option. Give us options. We would like that.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Tristan, who says, very inspirational talk. I totally agree on the pea gravel statement. You mentioned the front casters a couple of times and they pose issues with natural surface elements. What are your thoughts on parks providing all-terrain wheelchairs similar to bike share programs for use at these types of facilities?
Now that's a cool idea. In theory, wheelchairs are they're costly. And again, it's not just wheelchair users. What about our moms with strollers? What about elderly individuals that are trying to get out and they struggle on those types of surfaces as well? The all-terrain wheelchair is cool. I have one personally, but it definitely, it would be a cool option, but it would be hard. It would be costly, and just the availability as well. If by chance you have a group of wheelchair users that want to come out, like I would love to do I host community meetups for Wheel With Me Foundation where I bring the local wheelchair community together. And if I wanted to bring a whole group out to a specific trail for a specific reason, and that was the type of option there was, it would take that away because there's only X amount of wheelchairs, but X amount of people.
That's a great reply, Jesi. It leads right into the next question from Dave, who says, chairs must be expensive. Do you have a trail chair? Any recommendations for constructing a chair for trails specifically?
So there's actually a chair. I recommend all of you look it up. It is called the GRIT, G-R-I-T, Freedom Chair. And you pump it to make it go, which is the most independent way. It's a different workout. It's a really cool chair to have available. Again, there's options out there. But at the same time, I don't want to have to transfer into a different chair. I don't want to have to even worry about that. My goal is just to be able to go out and go. Everything in my life revolves around my disability, from going to the bathroom, getting in and out of the car, getting in and out of bed. You have to think, how many times am I transferring throughout the day? How many times am I reminded of my wheelchair? I want to be able just to go and not think about my disability.
Absolutely. Our next question is from Brianna, who says, when you are going to visit a trail for the first time, what information do you need to know to determine if it will be accessible?
So this is a perfect one. For Kings Mountain, I Googled accessible trails, and then the website had come up and it had the trail surface on it, and it said part asphalt, and I was like, sold. So anytime I see asphalt as a trail surface, I know that it's going to be somewhat accessible and I'll be able to wheel it. So that's my main one. And then natural surface. If anything says anything about gravel, I typically don't go there because that usually means that the whole thing is gravel. And that's just, it's hard. It's hard to have to hold a wheelie through a long path of gravel.
Thanks, Jesi. We've got another question here from Will, who asks, when I was working for state parks, I saw a replacement beach accessible chair for all users to enjoy Lake Norman. I was unable to find an appropriate chair. Do you recommend any organizations or foundations that can assist with state, local, and private organizations to attain appropriate chairs for users?
So the funding aspect, I'm sure there's nonprofits out there, but the nonprofits that I know of are for the actual individual. So like for my off-road chair, I applied for a grant and it was covered through the grant. And then the person that makes my wheelchair made me the off-road chair. So the two chairs that I recommend as far as manufacturers that you could contact directly, they'll make you a chair and you could have it available for people to use, would be Grit Freedom chairs, and then Box, BOX wheelchairs, which they're out of Texas, and I believe Grit's out of Maine or Vermont, somewhere northeast. But those are the two companies. You could literally reach out to them, find out how much it would be to get funding, or to find out how much funding you're going to need. Sometimes they offer funding assistance, sometimes they don't. It really depends on the circumstance and individual as well.
Fantastic. Okay, our last question is from Krista, who says, your outlook and video are very inspiring. I imagine attempting a trail may be intimidating to a lot of folks. I wonder if there are any groups or potential group activities at public trails or parks to help teach, demonstrate wheelchair users how to gain the skills necessary to navigate trails as confidently as you do. And perhaps you can speak a little bit about the Wheel With Me Foundation here.
That's so I really do. Post-COVID, we started hosting meetups last year, and so we're still a little new at the hosting the meetups and everything, but I want to do more meetups in nature, getting people out, and I think that's where it's going to start, is getting local community members to go out, experience these trails, and then encourage others to come with them and do it, which is what we do at Wheel With Me. It's about just that community support. For me, when I was in the hospital, I was joining Facebook support groups for spinal cord injuries. I was asking questions. I'm like, all right, so I have a T4 complete spinal cord injury. What's my life going to look like? And people just shared all of these pictures and videos. So that community aspect is really what uplifts one another. So if we could just get people onto the trail together. And my first thought, especially for my friends with power chairs, is the Lincolnton Trail. I think I'm going to do a meetup there one day, just be like, hey, everybody, let's meet here this time, pack your own picnic. Let's go explore, what this local trail has to offer, and just raising awareness that these things are available. Getting people, I would like to, my ultimate goal when I have a little bit more time is to go to the trails and just share with my local community the accessibility features of them, what makes the trail accessible, what obstacles it poses, and how we can overcome those obstacles. And I just think having that resource available to people would help empower them to realize, hey, this is something that I could do. It's just showing them and then empowering them and giving them that support that this is something that you can accomplish. It's confidence, 100%.
Thank you so much, Jesi. And we actually have one more that just came in, a great question. What are your thoughts on a new designation of accessible paths with natural elements that could be incorporated into ADA design standards? For example, a natural surface trail that meets certain width and surface requirements and avoids ledge-type elements.
Yes. That would be so great. The only time it would ever pose a problem is if it rains and it gets a ton of mud, or it's a place that collects a lot of water. But other, like, natural surfaces are hands down my favorite, obviously next to asphalt or the boardwalk. But the natural surface that's just flat and good to go, like, you could wheel so fast over it even with short grass on it. You could still wheel, as long as the grass isn't like that thick Bermuda grass. You could definitely have no problem. I love a natural surface. I have nothing against it. Don't mess up nature, like, don't put anything that's not meant to be there. I agree 100%. If you make them ADA compliant, and just the thing is, as time goes on and the weather wears, the biggest issue is, the divots that form and things like that. So if there's a way to keep a natural surface completely flat and accessible in that aspect, because as a manual wheelchair user, that's one of our biggest struggles, is as you're wheeling, these little, I don't know if you can see it, these little front casters, they're small, they get stuck on everything. And so, like, you just want to be able to have stuff that will wheel right over this without stopping it. That's the biggest obstacle as a manual wheelchair user that I've experienced on natural surfaces, the things that just pop up and stop my casters, which you also experience on a paved trail as well, with the little rocks and stones and whatnot. So, I mean, there's no way to actually avoid everything. So yes, back to the question, that would be a good solution.
Thank you so much, Jesi. I'm going to turn it back over to Brett, who's going to wrap this up.
Thanks, Addie. Jesi, thank you so much for what you do and what you do to inspire us as trail planners and developers to keep working hard at our craft, because this is really what it's all about. We want to make sure that the experience that is afforded on trails is afforded to everybody. And I love these keynotes where the whole goal here is to be reassured of the work that we do is important. And certainly with your interest in trails and your inspiration that you get from trails, it just wants us, we all want to work harder at it. So thank you for that. But I actually have a question. Getting to know you and having met you, you're an adventurous, fearless type of person. I know that. And I was thinking about that sense of adventure and was curious, with your love of the outdoors, and you've done all these Tough Mudder events, what are some bucket list adventures that you have for the future? What are some of your aspirations that you want to achieve for outdoor adventure, I guess is the way to say it?
Just outdoor adventure? Or
yeah, anything.
Well, overall, I would like to run our country one day. That's my ultimate goal. But for outdoor adventures, I would love for nothing more than to get to the top of Mount Rainier.
Great. And do you know some wheelchair users who've done that?
I know one who lives in Washington. He built this thing. It's called a pod, and you can only use it. That's one of the biggest issues with a wheelchair user hiking Rainier is the circulation issues in your legs. So you can only use this pod during the winter months, so before March. And the cold is a huge issue, but this pod won't damage the terrain if you use it in the winter months. And it's like, it's a hand cycle with tracks almost. It's nuts. Like, this dude built this in his garage and he made it all the way to the top.
Great. I've been to Mount Rainier a couple of times, so that's very aspirational. I'm excited to hear about that as you get closer to that goal. One of the things I'm very encouraged about, Jesi, is the fact that, since we've met you, this keynote today, and I know we've talked about this when we were out doing the filming, this is just the beginning now of a relationship with you from the Thread Trail. So we're looking forward to working with you in the future on some work days, getting your social circle out to help us with some of our trail needs. And then I know that you can be very valuable to, your neighbors in Lincoln County who are working on some trail trail projects as well. I already received an email from the Park and Rec director in Lincoln County who's interested, very interested and excited to talk to you more to get your insights on trails, because there's some really good trail plans on the docket in Lincoln County. So, so I want to thank you again. I want to thank everybody for their attendance and their interest and their support of Carolina Thread Trail. You know, I'm sorry that we weren't able to all meet in person, but I think this has gone very well. And certainly there are going to be networking opportunities here on our platform for a while longer. And just a couple items I want to mention. So Jesi is actually going to be available till 2 o'clock on the meetup under the community tab in Hoover. So you can continue conversations with Jesi, ask her more questions. I'm sure there's many of you that still have some questions for her. So, and then a couple other items that I wanted to mention was that all of these sessions are recorded, and those are going to be posted on the agenda tab in Hoover. And related to that, I know there's several of you probably looking to get your CEUs. We need you to talk to your individual provider for CEU credits to talk about the paperwork. But I will say that the recorded sessions, for those of you that are AICP, seeking AICP credits, the recorded sessions will be up on the planning website later on this afternoon. So you can get those recorded and then get additional CEUs beyond the event today. So those are just some housekeeping items. And, you know, feel free, we still have 38 minutes left in the program, so you can talk more with Jesi, or you can go on all the different components of Hoover. I'm not well versed in Hoover, but my colleagues are, and you can continue networking and talking about the conference and continue experience today. So on behalf of all of my teammates at the Thread Trail and the Conservancy and our board, thank you everybody for your attendance and your support of Carolina Thread Trail. Thanks a lot.